No doubt, narcissistic abuse causes massive biological damage and fundamentally alters the hormonal makeup of survivors due to prolonged exposure to chronic stress. While most people, including myself, primarily talk about cortisol when addressing this issue, the reality is there is a complex web of hormonal disruptions that happen at a cellular level which need to be discussed, and that's what we are going to do today. I'm Danish, a narcissistic abuse recovery professional. Welcome to my channel. Today's topic is 5 hormonal shifts narcissistic abuse causes that doctors cannot explain. This topic is particularly close to my heart because most medical professionals do not understand this phenomenon, and unfortunately survivors feel dismissed by the medical system. So if you have ever felt like your body was betraying you after narcissistic abuse, if you have been told your symptoms are all in your head, or if you are struggling with unexplained health issues that started during or after your abusive relationship, this episode is for you. Stay until the very end. Let's unpack the science behind what is really happening in your body. Hormonal shift number 1: dysregulated cortisol production. Let's start with the hormone everyone talks about, cortisol. But what most people do not understand is that it's not just about having high cortisol, right? Narcissistic abuse creates a dysregulated cortisol pattern that is far more complex and damaging than simple elevation. Under normal circumstances, cortisol follows a predictable daily rhythm. It should be highest in the morning to help you wake up, gradually declining throughout the day, and reaching its lowest point at night to promote sleep. This natural rhythm is controlled by your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, HP axis. Narcissistic abuse completely shatters this pattern. The constant hypervigilance, unpredictable narcissistic rage, and chronic stress of walking on eggshells creates cortisol dysregulation. Sometimes your cortisol spikes at inappropriate times, like 3 a.m. when you should be sleeping. Other times, it flatlines when you desperately need energy. This dysregulation shows up in 3 patterns. First, the hypercortisol phase with chronically elevated levels. You experience anxiety, insomnia, weight gain around midsection, and feeling wired but tired. Then comes the hypocortisol phase where your cortisol production crashes. You feel exhausted, struggle to get out of bed, and cannot handle any stress. The third pattern is erratic swings where your cortisol bounces wildly between high and low throughout the day. Doctors miss this because standard cortisol tests only measure a single point in time, usually morning levels. They are not looking at the entire daily pattern or understanding the context of narcissistic abuse. Hormonal shift number 2: disrupted oxytocin and dopamine reward systems. Moving on to the second major hormonal shift, we need to talk about your bonding and reward hormones, oxytocin and dopamine. Narcissistic abuse hijacks these systems in devastating ways. Oxytocin, the love hormone, is released during positive social interactions and emotional bonding. In healthy relationships, it creates a stable baseline of connection and trust. However, narcissists manipulate the system through intermittent reinforcement, periods of love bombing followed by extreme devaluation. During love bombing, your oxytocin levels spike dramatically. The narcissist floods you with attention and affection. Your brain interprets this as a powerful bonding experience. But then you know what comes? Then comes devaluation, where that oxytocin supply is definitely cut off. This creates a biochemical withdrawal that feels like genuine heartbreak because it is. The dopamine system becomes even more severely compromised. Dopamine is your brain's reward chemical, released when you anticipate or receive something pleasurable. Narcissists create unpredictable rewards that create the strongest addiction patterns known to psychology. This is not an exaggeration. Think of it like a slot machine. You do not know when you will get a payout, but when you do, the dopamine hit is massive. This is why survivors often describe feeling addicted to their abuser. Trauma bond. You literally are. Your brain has been hijacked by irregular dopamine releases that create powerful cravings for the narcissist's approval. After the relationship ends, your dopamine baseline is severely depleted. Nothing feels rewarding anymore. You cannot experience pleasure from activities you once enjoyed. This is called anhedonia, and it's a direct result of dopamine system dysregulation. Hormonal shift number 3, thyroid dysfunction and metabolic disruption. The third hormonal shift involves your thyroid system, which controls metabolism, energy production, and cellular function throughout your body. Chronic stress from narcissistic abuse creates a cascade of thyroid dysfunction that doctors struggle to identify and treat. Your thyroid system operates on a feedback loop between your hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and thyroid gland. The hypothalamus releases TRH, which signals the pituitary to release TSH, which then tells your thyroid to produce T4 and T3 hormones. Narcissistic abuse disrupts this entire system. Chronic cortisol elevation suppresses TSH production, leading to functional hypothyroidism, even when your TSH levels appear normal on standard tests. Additionally, stress hormones interfere with the conversion of T4 to T3, the active form of thyroid hormone your cells actually use. But it gets even more complex. The chronic inflammation caused by narcissistic abuse can trigger autoimmune responses against your own thyroid tissue. A lot of survivors unfortunately develop Hashimoto's or Graves' disease months or years after their abusive relationship ends. The symptoms of thyroid dysfunction mirror many effects of narcissistic abuse: fatigue, brain fog, weight changes, depression, anxiety, hair loss, and temperature sensitivity. This is why a lot of survivors feel like they're going crazy. Their symptoms are real and biological, but standard thyroid tests come back normal because doctors are not looking at the complete picture. They just look at a data point, and that does not give them the information they require to understand what's happening to you. Hormonal shift number 4, reproductive hormone chaos. The fourth major hormonal shift affects your reproductive system in profound ways. The chronic stress from narcissistic abuse severely disrupts sex hormone production. For women, this typically manifests as irregular or absent menstrual cycles, severe PMS symptoms, and disrupted ovulation. For women, this typically manifests as irregular or absent menstrual cycles, severe PMS symptoms, and disrupted ovulation. The constant stress signals to your body that it's not a safe time to reproduce, so it shuts down or severely reduces estrogen and progesterone production. Even when cycles continue, the quality changes dramatically. You may experience longer, more painful periods or cycles that are too short or too long. The delicate balance between estrogen and progesterone becomes chaotic, leading to mood swings, insomnia, and physical symptoms that seem to come out of nowhere. For men, chronic stress severely impacts testosterone production. The same stress signals that disrupt women's cycles tell the male body to reduce testosterone synthesis. This leads to decreased libido, erectile dysfunction, muscle loss, increased body fat, and significant mood changes, including depression and anxiety. Both men and women experience disrupted sleep patterns due to reproductive hormone change. Progesterone and testosterone have natural calming effects that promote deep sleep. When these hormones are suppressed, sleep becomes fragmented and non-restorative, creating a vicious cycle where poor sleep further disrupts hormonal balance. Hormonal shift number 5, insulin resistance and blood sugar dysregulation. The fifth and often most overlooked hormonal shift involves insulin, the hormone that regulates your blood sugar levels. Narcissistic abuse creates chronic insulin resistance that can persist for years after the situation with the narcissist ends. When you are in a constant state of fight or flight from narcissistic abuse, your body continuously releases glucose into your bloodstream to provide quick energy for survival. This triggers repeated insulin spikes as your body tries to manage the excess blood sugar. Over time, your cells become resistant to insulin's effects, requiring higher and higher levels to achieve the same glucose control. This insulin resistance creates a cascade of metabolic problems. You may experience intense sugar and carbohydrate cravings as your body desperately tries to get glucose into resistant cells. Weight gain becomes almost inevitable, particularly around the midsection. You may feel tired after meals, experience brain fog, and have difficulty losing weight no matter how much you diet or exercise. The connection between insulin resistance and other hormonal disruptions creates a perfect storm. Insulin resistance worsens cortisol dysregulation, which further impairs thyroid dysfunction, which then affects reproductive hormones, creating a complex web of hormonal chaos. A lot of survivors develop pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes years after their abusive relationship ends, not understanding that the metabolic damage began during the period of narcissistic abuse. Now, why do doctors miss these patterns? The medical system is designed to look at individual symptoms and isolated hormone levels, not the complex interactions between psychological trauma and biological systems. In other words, it's not a holistic approach they use. Most physicians are not trained to recognize the specific patterns of hormonal disruption caused by narcissistic abuse. Additionally, standard hormone tests often miss the subtle but significant changes that occur. A cortisol level might be within normal range, but still represent dysfunction for your individual baseline. Thyroid tests may show normal TSH, but miss the conversion problems or autoimmune processes developing. Reproductive hormone tests may be done at the wrong time of cycle or fail to capture the dysregulated patterns. Now, understanding these hormonal shifts is the first step toward healing. Recovery requires a comprehensive, holistic approach that addresses both the psychological trauma and the biological damage. This includes targeted nutritional support, stress management techniques, appropriate supplementation, and sometimes bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. The good news is that hormones can be restored and rebalanced with the right approach. Your body has an incredible capacity, a miraculous capacity for healing when given the proper support and environment. But it requires guidance, patience, consistency, and a lot of self-compassion. I offer all of these in my membership program called Thrive After Narcissistic Abuse. I created that program just keeping all these things in mind. In this program, I'll teach you how to stabilize your body, your nervous system, so that everything else gets stabilized properly and you do the healing right way so that you can thrive forever. If you want to join, you can join right now. I have opened it only for 5 days. Link is in the description of this episode. With that, let's bring it to an end. Thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you in the next one. Until then, as always, let the healing begin and continue.